America's known our share of tyrants. In response to tyranny, we created one of the greatest guiding documents ever written by mankind. We stood for what was right. We've also made mistakes, but we corrected those mistakes by fighting for what was right both inside our borders and beyond. Today, America faces another challenge: Christian nationalism. Misguided faith, misguided patriotism, justifying misguided deeds.
Lord, turn the hearts of those who are in power and position to make decisions.
That protest T circle, breach the line.
That's not who we are, America. The Constitution is as true today as the day it was ratified. America stands for freedom, and America stands for doing what's right. And it's time we start restoring the American dream. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Restoring the American Dream. This is Brian Mistro. I'm here with Reverend Michael Faulkner and Robert George. And Robert, it is great to have you on today because I think today's discussion is something that affects both not just our history of our distant relatives, and forefathers, but also yours. And it's we're going to deep dive into what is America's role in the world. And Michael has done an absolutely, as he always does, a fabulous job of writing this up and creating some deep dives and discussion points for this. What I'd like to do, Michael, if it's okay, I'd like to start off and and go back to really kind of the beginning of our country for a minute, and the early 1800s, when we were still a very, very new, very young country, and talk about the Monroe Doctrine. So the doctrine is it is a deep dive into how they saw and how America saw its place in the world, and I'll chat about that in just a second. But if it's okay, let me just go ahead, and I'd like to share a slide, Michael, and deep dive into that for a second. So the Monroe Doctrine of 1823. Let me start there, and again, I'm only going to hit the high points of this for everybody. So if you're a history professor, please forgive me. But the United States of America in 1823 was a young country. We did not have a large navy. We did not, or much of a navy. We had recently come off of some wars, plus especially with England, and our goal was to separate ourselves from Europe, and we did that by saying, okay, although we can't back it up, incidentally. The Western Hemisphere is ours. You stay out of it, Europe, and we won't say anything. And in return, the wars in Europe and all the things that you're going to do is yours, and we will stay out of that. It was a different world then, but that's kind of the basis of the Monroe Doctrine. And it's important because that is generally seen as an isolationist doctrine. It was an isolationist viewpoint. And then I'm going to go back to the slide for one more second, because it wasn't just from 1823, the Roosevelt corollary of 1904. And I'm just going to briefly mention that, and then it's all yours, Michael. In 1904, it was very much the same thing. We're going to be isolationist. We don't want to get involved in your wars, Europe. We don't want to be a part of it. And the focus was, no more colonization was from the Monroe Doctrine. Their point was, from Roosevelt's corollary, was that, not only that, but you stay out of the Caribbean. We manage that. Don't get involved in any nations in the Caribbean. Don't involve yourselves in anything happening there. And we're going to stay out of Europe, and that's how we're going to separate it. So I thought that would be kind of a good introduction, Michael, to what you want to talk about, because are we seeing some of those same analogies today?
Well, no, and let me tell you why. Because when the Monroe Doctrine was signed, we didn't have a navy, and Britain had to actually back us up and enforce it, and Britain agreed, and so that's what made it
Yeah.
possible, feasible.
Yeah.
There was no such thing as an air force. So even, so any intervention that we would have had, or or involvement that we would have had in a European conflict, we weren't able to do that. However,
Right.
it basically said, hey, we want to be safe. This was not a pledge of honesty and fealty to stay in our lane. It was just saying, look, you stay on your side of the pond, we'll stay on our side of the pond, and we'll agree to be friends.
Right.
And that's basically what it was. And then, of course, Teddy Roosevelt in 1904, his corollary to that doctrine said, well, we can still get involved in stuff going on this hemisphere.
In the
So
Caribbean.
we
Yeah,
can
right.
get involved,
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Caribbean, and the whole Panama Canal and so forth. And so it created that. And then, and we're not going to do a deep dive into this, but now the foreign policy has even been pushed even further, under this administration, because it's like all bets are off. Anything that we need or we want, we're going to make a play for it. And so it really, in my opinion, what I wanted to discuss was the I don't want to say the moral vicissitudes, but the morality of it all, in terms of what is America's position in the world. Are we a peacekeeper, or are we a imperial, power to
Right. Yeah.
to take what we want, loot, pillage, and we can do it nicely. We can say, well, we can offer you money, we can pay for your rare earth minerals, or we can just, we can import guns and now weapons, and we can have this global, connection, because we are global. But with that, I'd like Robert to weigh in on this.
Yeah. What do you think, Robert?
Well, I mean, a lot of things to a whole lot of different things to talk about there, and I'd like just trying to bring it all together. So I would say that it is certainly the case that the at its root, the idea of the Monroe Doctrine from James Monroe was the notion that even as a young country, we were still seeing ourselves as at least mentally speaking, a rising power.
Mm-hmm.
And
I would agree with that. Yeah.
After two significant altercations with England, which had been the dominant imperial power of the time, we had to, like, in a sense, set a specific line, saying, we've had the Revolutionary War, we've had the War of 1812. You guys came over and burned the White House and so forth. Enough's enough. As Michael said, we now consider this there's an invisible line, but on this side of it, if you want to call it this Western side of it, it's the United States. We basically, this is us. We don't care how much colonialism that the big powers, England, France, Russia, all of these, Spain, all of these nations had been colonizing and come down into South America and into the United States.
Mm-hmm.
But we've been building up to this for a while. I mean, before the Monroe Doctrine, obviously, we had the Louisiana Purchase, where we end up purchasing from France, Louisiana, adding to the expansion of the United States.
Doubled our size.
Doubled our size. While but it's funny. We would, talking about, just pre-World War One, this notion of, well, Teddy Roosevelt is, sort of, using the speak softly, carry a big stick
Mm-hmm.
uh, notion, but the United States was sort of exercising, its own global muscles, because it's kind of hard to say, well, we'll stay here and you stay there, when we then just go and, acquire the Philippines,
Right.
which last I noticed is, I mean, I'm from Trinidad, and the Philippines is not a hop, skip, and a jump from from the Caribbean. It's all the way on the other side of the world. So that's where that's the beginning of the 20th century is where what was seen initially as a protective statement, the Monroe Doctrine, we don't want you guys coming over here. That started to be pushed aside by the beginning of the 20th century,
Mm-hmm.
and we started exercising some of our own. We won't call them imperial, but let's just say we're casting our eyes a lot further than our natural borders. And then, of course, World War One, which we end up winning for for our former enemies, England and the rest of the and the rest of Western Europe. And then, going into World War II and coming out of World War II, and we're clearly the dominant power, in the in the West, and the notion of the Monroe Doctrine sort of becomes a little bit quaint until Cuban Missile Crisis in 1962, where the Russians are, they want to put missiles in Cuba,
Yeah.
which is a violation of, obviously, but that was when, one of the rare times where we say, you are literally not coming into our backyard
Yeah.
with this.
That
This
is war.
that's a complete and total violation, and it was probably the closest we got to actual war with the Soviet Union in the 20th century.
So thank you, Robert, and I agree with everything that you said. The I guess the grand question that we have now as we talk about the restoring of the American dream and where we go from here is, what is our role? Because two things we didn't mention, Hawaii and Alaska. That was all part of
Yeah.
our expansion, expansion. And when we talk about now looking at Venezuela and again, some of the things that the administration,
Cuba again,
Cuba.
Cuba again, and
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 Nicaragua as
and
an
I will
example.
also
Nicaragua
throw
and
in Nicaragua,
Nicaragua.
given
Right,
the comments from the last couple of days. Yes,
Yeah.
right,
exactly.
right. So it's very, very, very important that we have a soul and that we know who we are and what we believe about the role of America in its expansion. I understand defending its borders, and honestly, now I know this doesn't seem like it matters much, but changing the name from the Department of Defense to the Department of War changes the tone a bit. It's not no longer, speak softly and carry a big stick. It's carry a big stick and beat as many people as you can over the head with it as possible. And that
Yeah.
just does not bode well for us. We are a global power. We have arguably the strongest economy. We certainly have the strongest industrial complex in the world, right? And so we can and do make more weapons than anybody else, but does that give us the right? Is that what we should be doing? And I honestly, I'm looking at, the whole idea of involvement in global conflicts, what we should be doing about that, and how we can influence people. The endless wars and the billions and trillions of dollars that we're spending on those
Mm,
wars, financing those wars, is of great concern. And the really scary thing for me is that we, the people, are not involved in the conversation.
yeah.
Most Americans don't know what's going on. They don't understand our history and are not asking the tough and difficult questions that we need to ask. And at this point, we don't have a Congress that is holding our, military complex accountable for the actions that they are taking and why. I
And the
do,
president, and the
and the
president.
president, and the president. Yeah.
So I guess they have a saying for that is might right. So that's kind of the phrase is might right, and that
Right.
is if you have the
Oh, I
power to
thought you,
do something, is
Brian, I
it
thought you
okay?
said, is Mike right? And I was going to say, yeah, Mike is right. I can't disagree with
That's the Texas way of saying
It
it.
is. It's I can't
that.
get away from it. You raised in Texas. You can leave Texas, but it never leaves you. So I think that and I'd like to hear your point on it, Robert, because I don't I don't understand, and I would have thought that World War One and World War Two especially would have taught this country that isolationism doesn't work anymore. That sticking within our borders and not truly being leaders worldwide would have a major effect because it will eventually come home. We're now a world economy. Here's a perfect point. What happens right now in the Strait of Hormuz affects every single one of us and how much gas you're going to be buying and paying for your F-150 when you go fill it up. All right. So my question be to you, Robert, is does isolationism even work? And I'm going to add a second part to that. Number one, does isolationism work? And number two, is that truly the policy that this administration is really trying to push? Because MAGA, Make America Great Again, is America first, and yet we're at war with Iran.
Well, I mean, no, that I mean that's the key here, and I'm not even sure uh, whether isolationism is the right word to be using. Uh, uh, as a candidate, Donald Trump, uh, in in his interregnum in the 20 in the 2021 to 2024 period, uh, he tried to push the notion that he should be seen as the candidate of peace. And in fact, actually, that was an argument going back into 2016. There was there was a excuse me there was a notorious um, Maureen Dowd column in the in New York Times in 2016, referring to Donald the Dove and Hillary the Hawk, seeing Hillary as being more
I think I remember
bellicose.
that, by the way.
Yeah, and I mean, I love the alliteration, so props to Maureen Dowd on that. But ultimately, the idea was, oh, if you're going to vote in 2016 and you think there's war on the table, Hillary's more likely to get us involved in a foreign altercation. And there had been in the first 20 years or so of the 21st century, the United States had been extending its footprint to a level that both parties were starting to have having a lot of difficulties with. I mean, we went from post 9/11, where Republicans first took us to Afghanistan, which there was general consensus on, then into Iraq, which that any consensus there completely fell apart. And to Donald Trump's credit, if you will, he really was the only candidate in 2015 to recognize that the same frustration with U, U.S. imperialism in terms of going into Middle East wars and these wars going on forever, the same frustration that had always been on the left with things like Code Pink and stuff like that. There was an aspect of it within the Republican Party, and Donald Trump was really the only person that actually saw that. And I think, that's how he carved out distinction between himself and Jeb Bush and the classic Republican foreign policy establishment. You fast forward to today, though.
Right.
He says, "Oh well, I've ended 8 wars." He has not ended 8 wars, and we've got this hope, and we've started a really pretty big one with Iran, which
Yeah,
is
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but he's already won that war twice.
Right. And the Ukraine. So right now we are involved. We have
Ukraine. This is the other weird thing, though. They are making this argument that they want to be the peacemakers to end the Ukraine war. First of all, we are not at war with Ukraine. Ukraine is fighting for its life and its sovereignty and its freedom and so forth against Russia. And it is incredibly unusual in terms of the last 100 years of the United States, that where we have been seen as the bastion of freedom in terms of certain principles we would like to see spread around the world, we are now for at least the last year or so been the ones saying, "Oh, Zelensky and Ukraine should just acquiesce to whatever Russia wants," which is
Well, that's how he solves the war. He just tells Ukraine to surrender.
Yeah.
So
stand
then the
down.
war's over. So
I
um,
mean, so yeah.
go ahead, Michael. I was going to say something tacky about our policy there, but that's
So
okay.
so the not just the question, but the debate, and I think we have to have this national discussion when we get a Congress in place that can truly hold this administration accountable. If we are, successful and I don't believe that anybody can get off the politics long enough to know and notice what's going on. These are very important questions, but I came up with this acronym that, for America, that could outline the policies. It's 1A, avoid unnecessary wars. Now that's a word salad. Unnecessary. Who decides whether it's necessary or unnecessary? Granted, right?
Right.
Not perfect, but avoid unnecessary wars. M, maintain unmatched military strength. I do think we do need to have unmatched military strength, because might doesn't make right, but in this global, situation that we don't want to be, we do not want to be an inferior power,
Peace through
because
strength.
peace through strength. E, engage in fair trade. I think it's important to remember that trade is what drives this. It's what drives the global engine. It what drives it's what keeps the balance of powers. It is through the trade that, and that's why the wars on tariffs was just so crazy, because it upset the balance, not just the balance of power, but economic power. But maintain fair trade. R, respect our alliances and treaties. I think we
There's a
need to
big one.
do that. I think we have got to get back to just our word has got to be our bond, and we've got to be a promise-keeping nation again, if we ever were.
Yeah.
But I think that's got to be one of those values. The interest for America first. I mean, that's honestly, I agree, but here's why I agree with that, or why I say that. It's not because I think we're the most powerful, but I think because of our history, we have come from a place of establishing freedom. And if we could ever get back to that, we do have the documents in place and the governmental structure in place to continue to promote freedom. So I do believe American interest first. And C, choose diplomacy before force. I think diplomacy has got to be the first wave of every conversation if we're going to do that. And we can say, oh, well, we've tried diplomacy. And honestly, and that's one of the things that I know about the Iranian war. Diplomacy has not worked, and it's not been because we didn't try.
That's right.
It's
Yeah.
been because the Iranians are nuts. They don't have a power structure in place that is controlling that country. They're fighting against each other. There's so much infighting going on there that they can't get a word in. It's really crazy. But we do want diplomacy, and then finally advance freedom through example. So if such a thing is possible, and we can certainly revisit some of those, later at another time and talk more about that. But the thing is, we have got to get back to some kind of a moral structure. And I said this is the last thing I'll say. And Robert, love to, or Brian, love to hear your response on this. I think, and when you look into Taiwan, right? Once we start that, we don't recognize the Taiwanese government as an official. We don't have an official recognition of them. We do trade with them. We don't have an official. We have been kicking that can down the beach for 40 years.
Yeah.
And China is about ready to say, well, we're tired of this little, and we don't have a dog in that fight. We can't say anything. We can't do anything because of the way we've acted, in South America, of some of the things that we've said. We've lost the moral high ground. Plus, for 40 years, we have not had a policy that would actually stand with Taiwan. We've not recognized them diplomatically and so forth, and could not do so. And so we're in a situation.
So I know we're getting close on time here. So just a couple of things. First of all, I love that that nice acronym, which if I
And we're going to
followed
put that
it
up on our
correctly,
site too, by the way,
yeah,
everybody that's watching, that's going to go up. That's very good, Michael. Well done.
yeah, America, exactly. Something I think we've seen in when you start reading between the lines from President Trump and Vice President Vance, they are in a certain way trying to revive the Monroe Doctrine in a slightly slightly different context or a descriptor. When we've gone into as we went down there into Venezuela and took out Maduro, and we're threatening to do the same with Cuba. And now Nicaragua is talking about no more elections and what might happen there. The fact that this administration has been allowed Putin to basically get whatever he wants with respect to Ukraine suggests a notion where we assert North America, South America, Central America, that area that region belongs to the United States, or is in the control of the United States, and in fact even exerting it up into North America and regions nearby such as Greenland. Meanwhile, that would allow Russia to take hold of whatever it wants in Eastern Europe, and yes, that could conceivably mean surrendering Taiwan to China. And I don't really think that this administration has been hiding that's kind of what their that's what their great powers long game is. And the ethics and the morality of that from the United States perspective is something that needs deep discussion.
So we're out of time. Can I just ask both of you in like a 30-second or 60-second answer? Can, can the United States even be isolationist anymore? And I'll start with you, Michael. This is your show. Um, would it even work?
No, no, absolutely not. But the problem, absolutely not. And I wouldn't even advocate for it. The problem is we have no moral compass right now.
Mm,
So our involvement at one point, I grew up thinking our involvement meant we were taking freedom to those places that were under communist rule.
Yeah, yeah,
That can no longer be the case,
yeah,
and so we don't have a moral compass. So
yeah. Robert, can we be isolationists anymore?
Uh, we can't be, and we can't be talking out of two sides of our mouth. We can't be on the one hand say, oh, we're the peace, we're the administration of peace, even though we're calling it the Department of War. We want to be, America first, but we're in Iran, and we've created such a mess over there that now you have serious elements in both parties that have become hostile to
Yeah,
Israel, which has
yeah,
been one of our longest ally. And a lot of that is because there has not been communication as to from this administration as to say what are our actual needs, necessities, what are, to being in the Middle East.
yeah. I concur with both of you 1,000%. We're out of time. This would be a great discussion to pick up because what I'd like to talk about, maybe we touch on next time, Michael, is so what is our role in the world then? I mean, where do we, using your America, how do we build that type of a coalition internally for America? That's our plan longer term, and both immediately for America because we are entangled in the Middle East and what happens there does affect America. Thank you, everybody, for watching us tonight. If you're watching this, you may be watching on X or Facebook. You may be watching it on YouTube. If you are, please press subscribe. Like what we're doing. Leave us a question. Leave Robert a question. Leave Michael a question. We'll talk about it on air. We always do. And what are your thoughts? Should America be an isolationist? Should America get more involved in the world? There's two trains of thought there. I think that we've shared this one on our panel pretty clearly tonight because Robert and Michael have done just a substantial job. And we will be putting the America, if you're following that, what Michael wrote up, we are going to put that on our site. Follow it and read it and tell us what you think, right? So again, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. We genuinely appreciate it, and we will see you again this next Thursday. Thank you.
You've been watching Reverend Michael's Restoring the American Dream. The No Bull Media Group is on all major social media platforms. Make sure to give us a follow so you can watch this show and many others.
A No Bull Media Group member.